I'm J.D. Cunegan, author of Natna and the Jill Anderson series, and today we're going to talk about fan fiction. Spoiler alert, I like it. I'll let you in on a little secret. I write fan fiction. For the longest time, it was Castle fan fiction. There was one where I managed to merge Castle with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and it was fun to write. But it got lost in the shuffle of life as a full-time worker bee and self-published author. I recently got back in the fan fiction game with a Batwoman multi-chapter, because historically, fan fiction has helped me become a more confident, more productive writer. Now, depending on which corner of the writer internet in which you say the words fan fiction, there's no telling the reaction you'll get. In certain circles, fan fiction might as well double as one of the late great George Carlin's 7 dirty words. It's the thing that shall not be spoken of. And people who partake in it might as well be wearing a scarlet W on their chest. Acting like fan fiction is the second coming of Satan, and the director's cut of Batman v Superman all rolled into one. Now, I don't begrudge authors who don't want to see fan fiction of their work. It's their work, it's their intellectual property, and they're entitled to not wanting others to play with it. I disagree with that notion. I would flip out, in a good way, if I ever found out someone wrote fan fiction based on my work. But I'll never tell another writer how to treat their intellectual property. But I think some of the anti-fan fiction sentiment stems from such works as the 50 Shades of Grey series, which famously started out as Twilight fan fiction before big publishing swooped in and left millions of us with a bastardized version of what BDSM should be. But that's another video essay that someone else can tackle. It's also worth noting that many of the most active fan fiction readers and writers online tend to be female and or LGBT, and that there's plenty of adult material in fan fiction. So I can't help but feel like a good chunk of the anti-fan fiction sentiment is society trying, once again, to render things that speak to marginalized people as less than, as the other. Like the quote-unquote wrong people enjoy it, and there's no money in it, so to some, it has no worth or value. So I wanted to create this video in defense of fan fiction for several different reasons. One, it's fun. Seriously, people are showing their love for their pop culture property of choice by spending more time in it, by creating their own corner of it. People love Harry Potter so much, for example, that they spend their precious free time creating more of it, without payment. Fan fiction, at its essence, is a labor of love. Number 2, fan fiction can be great practice for both the novice and the experienced writer. When writing fan fiction, you're operating in a fictional universe that already exists. The rules are already there, the characters are at least somewhat fleshed out, and in writing fan fiction, you can hone your skills when it comes to plotting, dialogue, characterization, even if the fan fiction in question stems from a belief that the source material has erred in some way. For example, Kate Beckett would never walk out on Richard Castle like that. The basics hold true. Number 3, unless a fan fiction writer is profiting off the work, which is an entirely different discussion altogether, fan fiction is, at the end of the day, harmless fun. People are reading and writing stories about worlds and characters they love. They're harming nobody in doing this, and if a new fan fiction chapter is what helps somebody get through their day, then it's worth it. Number 4, not to get all meta on everything, but if you really boil it down, almost anything can be considered fan fiction these days. It's a variation of the everything derives from everything else argument. That there is no truly original idea anymore, and that every story, explicitly or otherwise, borrows from several other sources. Many of us became creators because something someone else created inspired us, and we pour that inspiration into our work. Fan fiction is just a more overt expression of that. I'm not saying everyone has to partake in fan fiction. It's your prerogative if you don't. But don't look down on people who read it, and certainly don't begrudge people who write it. In a way, fan fiction is one of the purest forms of written expression, because it's done without the expectation of reimbursement. If I publish a book, it's in the hope that someone buys it. And if they buy it, I get a cut of that money. If I write fan fiction and someone reads it, I get the satisfaction of knowing someone read it. But fan fiction is a legitimate form of writing, a legitimate form of entertainment, and a legitimate form of artistic expression. To be perfectly honest, without fan fiction, I'm not sure if I'm a published author at this point. Writing fan fiction gave me the confidence and allowed me to develop my skills to a point where I can better prepared to tackle my original work. But more than anything, fan fiction is fun. It's harmless, and it's really just another way for creatives to show support for the stories and the characters they love. Like what you saw today? Click the like button and subscribe to this channel so you can be notified whenever there's a new video. And be sure to visit jdcuneganbooks.com to check out my work and follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Links are down below in the video description. Be safe and be good to each other.